A common question that comes up is in regards to rest breaks, and specifically how long should I be resting between sets or between exercises when I'm training with kettlebells? Now, the answer to that really depends on what your goal is. We know that kettlebells can help us get bigger, kettlebells can help us get stronger, and kettlebells can also help us improve our endurance or our conditioning. And depending on which of those three things you are training for, that's what's really going to determine how long you should rest between exercises. So if your goal with your kettlebell workout is to get as strong as possible, you're going to need to make sure you're resting long enough between sets so that you're fully rested before going into that next set or the next exercise. And this will be anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, but you need to make sure you're going into that next set fresh. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we've got the conditioning or endurance type workouts. Now with these ones, you're probably going to be using a lighter kettlebell, and you want to make sure that those rest breaks are pretty short. So we want to be going from set to set or from exercise to exercise with kind of as little amount as rest as possible. Now sometimes there's some pretty specific conditioning type workouts where there's a very defined rest break. So maybe you're doing something like an every minute on the minute where you're going to start a new set at the start of every minute. Other times you might have something that's just get this done as fast as possible. But typically on that conditioning endurance side of things, your rest breaks are going to be very short, kind of rest as little as needed. Now in the middle, we've got hypertrophy. So if your goal is to get as big of muscles as possible with your kettlebell, your rest breaks are going to be somewhere in between. Now, when we're training for conditioning or endurance, we're going to be using a relatively light kettlebell. When we're training for absolute strength, we're going to be going pretty heavy. Hypertrophy is going to be somewhere in the middle. We don't want to be using a kettlebell that we can only press, say, 3 times. We also don't want to be using a kettlebell that we can press 50 times. We're going to be using something in between, and just like the size of the kettlebell, our rest breaks are going to be somewhere in between as well. So when we're doing conditioning or endurance, our rest breaks are as short as possible. When we're doing absolute strength, our rest periods are as long as needed. In the middle, those hypertrophy workouts, they're going to be, again, somewhere in between. Typically, this is going to look like 60 to 90 seconds between sets and reps. It's okay to go in a little bit fatigued. Probably you don't want to be gasping for air or anything like that, but it's okay if that heart rate's up a little bit. Hypertrophy, density is really what we're after, time under tension. So the more work we can do in a contained period of time, that's what's really going to help us get those muscles big. So again, conditioning, endurance, short rest periods, absolute strength, long rest periods. Hypertrophy, somewhere in the middle, 60 to 90 seconds. Stick with that. It's going to be a pretty good guideline to get you where you want to go.